For 23 years, his audience was empty hallways and flickering fluorescent lights. Then, on one September night, the silence broke. A 55-year-old janitor from Indiana stood under the brightest lights in America as confetti waited in loaded cannons, and millions watched, unaware they were about to witness something rare. How does a man go from singing to himself to standing at the center of the world? What does it cost to believe in a dream after decades of being ignored? When the name Richard Goodall was announced, a lifetime of grief, rejection, and quiet perseverance collapsed into tears, and the song he once sang alone echoed back at him, this time with the band that wrote it. This isn't a talent show victory, it's a reckoning. A story about what happens when patience outlasts doubt. And a man who was never supposed to be seen is finally impossible to ignore. Fame found him. He didn't chase it. The night Richard won America's Got Talent, he had already experienced one of the greatest weeks of his life. Just 6 days earlier, on September 18, 2024, he married his fiancée Angie Vanoven in Pasadena, California. He announced it on Facebook with pure joy. As of 3 p.m. Pacific Time, Angie and I are now Richard and Angela Van Goodall. They celebrated with dinner on the beach at Moon Shadows in Malibu, surrounded by the AGT family who had watched Richard transform from a nervous janitor into a national phenomenon. Now, less than a week later, he was standing on that stage as confetti rained down. A married man and a millionaire, living a life he never could have imagined. His final performance had been Journey's Faithfully, a ballad about loyalty and love on the road. Richard belted it out with a full band behind him, hitting every soaring high note, while the audience swayed and held up phone flashlights, creating a sea of light in the darkened theater. When the last note faded, the standing ovation was so loud the judges could barely be heard. Heidi Klum, who had given Richard the golden buzzer that sent him to the live shows, was emotional. "You are such an amazing man," she said. "You're so humble. You're so kind. You're also a little bit quiet, but not when you're behind that microphone. Then you are a big rock star. I want you to win this so bad, Richard." Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty, called Richard a hero. "We all need a hero right now," he said. "And you are our hero." Howie Mandel made a prediction that would prove accurate within hours. "I think you just sang yourself $1 million. The finale brought one more surprise. Neil Schon, who had been watching Richard's journey from the road while touring with Journey, sent a video message before the results. "Richard, it's Neil from Journey," he said. "I loved your audition, man, and I have a surprise for you. I'm coming to perform with you on the finale." When Schon walked onto that stage with band members Dean Castronovo, Todd Jensen, and Jason Derlatka, Richard could barely hold himself together. They performed Don't Stop Believin' together, the janitor and the rock legends, the song that had defined Richard's entire journey. "We've been on tour for the last 6 months," Schon told the audience afterward. "But I've been watching this phenomenon. He's an amazing singer, an amazing man, and I'm proud to be here today for him." 3 days after his victory, on September 27, 2024, Richard returned home to Terre Haute, Indiana. The homecoming at West Vigo Middle School was overwhelming. Students lined the hallways singing "Don't Stop Believin'" as he walked past, reaching out for high fives and hugs. A member of the mayor's office presented him with the key to the city. The school marquee displayed a message that captured everything. Good luck sweeping the competition. Richard signed autographs on tennis shoes and phone cases, took countless selfies, and tried to process the fact that the same hallways where he had been invisible for 23 years were now filled with people who saw him as a star. But the question everyone wanted answered was simple. Would he quit his job? Richard had just won $1 million and a new Kia car. Offers were flooding in. His audition video had surpassed 42 million views on YouTube. He could walk away from the mop and the cafeteria tables and the early morning shifts and never look back. Instead, Richard made a choice that stunned the entertainment industry. He went back to work. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, he confirmed he was planning to keep his janitor job, at least for a while. "How could I possibly become a diva type of person?" he said. "I'm not. That is not going to happen. I am not a fancy person. I never have been, and I never will be. I am a basic person, just like everyone else." The invisible years. To understand why Richard made that choice, you have to understand where he came from. Richard Goodall grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, a city of about 60,000 people on the banks of the Wabash River. It is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, where Friday night football games are sacred, and where dreams of stardom feel like they belong to other people in other places. Richard discovered his voice as a teenager, spending hours alone in his bedroom with his Radio Shack stereo, singing along to whatever came through the speakers, teaching himself to mimic the artists he idolized. He joined his high school chorus and found something that felt like purpose. After graduation, he started performing at karaoke nights in the 1990s, then moved to the contest circuit with local radio stations. He sang with 2 different gospel trios for years, filling churches with harmonies that moved congregations to tears. But music never paid the bills. Richard needed stability, something close to home, something reliable. He found it at Chauncey Rose Middle School, just 3 blocks from his house. He became a janitor. The job was simple: clean the classrooms, empty the trash, mop the floors, make sure everything was ready for the students the next morning. He could walk to work. He liked the routine. He liked the kids, even when they were loud and messy and completely oblivious to the man cleaning up after them. 23 years he worked for the Vigo County School Corporation, eventually transferring to Davis Park Elementary and then to West Vigo Middle School. He watched thousands of students pass through those doors. He became part of the furniture, someone people walked past 1,000 times without really seeing. And every day, when the hallways emptied and the building fell silent, Richard would sing. He sang in the gymnasium with its high ceilings and natural reverb. He sang in the cafeteria where his voice bounced off the tile floors. He sang anywhere he could find a moment alone. The students would sometimes hear him. They would tell him he had talent, that he should try out for something, that his voice was too good to waste on empty rooms. Richard smiled and thanked them and went back to his mop. He had learned long ago not to expect too much from dreams. Outside of work, Richard kept music alive through a local band called Menopause. He performed with his bandmate Tom Greenberg at venues around Terre Haute, places like Archie's Sports Bar and The Mill, belting out what they called classic to current rock anthems that others just can't play. Jamie Cheeseman, a bartender at Archie's, remembers hearing Richard do Journey covers as well as anyone she had ever heard. Tom Greenberg knew his friend had something special. "You throw him on a Journey song, and he's just the best of the best," Greenberg would later say. "He's just a perfect Journey singer." But Menopause was a local secret. They played for crowds who knew them, in bars where everyone was a friend. Nobody outside Terre Haute had any idea what Richard Goodall could do. The year everything fell apart. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic shut everything down. The gospel trios disbanded. The bar gigs disappeared. Richard's world contracted to his job, and his home, and the silence in between. And then, in June 2021, the worst thing imaginable happened. His wife, Patty, whom he had been married to for 30 years, died of cancer. Patricia Sue Goodall was 74 years old. They had built an entire life together, raised children together, grown old together, and now she was gone. Richard posted about her death on Instagram, and his words still carry the weight of that devastation. "I'm so sorry," he wrote. "I did my best, but my best wasn't good enough." Cancer is like getting punched in the gut. He described the disease as a force that knocks you down, but also forces you to get back up and start over. He was trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. "When you're married for so long and they pass away and you've got that void there," he later told the Indianapolis Star, "your biggest concern is figuring out who you are without them." Music became the bridge again. A few months after Patty's death, a fellow janitor posted on Facebook that he was going to be at a bar with his karaoke system. Richard decided to show up. He started singing publicly again, letting his grief pour out through the only language that had ever made sense to him. The bar featured him on their Facebook page. A woman named Angie Vanovan followed that page. She saw Richard's videos. Something about his voice, his story, his sadness, and his strength caught her attention. They connected online and started talking on New Year's Day 2022. And the rest, Richard would later say, is me and her history. Love had found him again, in the most unexpected way, at the most unexpected time. In the summer of 2022, teachers at Davis Park Elementary asked Richard if he wanted to sing at the year-end program. He said sure. They told him to pick whatever song he wanted. He chose "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey, a song that had been his anthem since 1981, a song about holding on to hope even when everything seems impossible. He stepped up to the microphone in front of a modest crowd of teachers and parents and children, and he sang. A teacher's assistant named Hallie held up her phone and recorded him. She posted it to TikTok on a Thursday afternoon without thinking much about it. By Friday morning, Richard was scrubbing the floor in a first-grade classroom when someone approached him. The video had 100,000 views. He asked if that was good. By the end of the weekend, it was at 1 million. By the time it hit 3 million, something extraordinary happened. The official TikTok account of Journey shared his video. And then Steve Perry, the legendary original lead singer of Journey, left a comment. Steve Perry, who was famously reclusive and rarely commented on anything publicly, wrote 3 simple words: "I love this." He then shared Richard's video across all of his social media platforms. His fans flooded the comments with support. Richard, who had spent his entire life trying to sing like Steve Perry, could not believe what he was seeing on his screen. The rejection that almost ended everything but Richard had been here before. In 2009, he traveled to Chicago for an America's Got Talent open call audition. Back then, they called them cattle calls. Thousands of hopefuls lined up for their chance. Richard performed and did not make it past the first round. He went home and tried to move on. He kept singing in empty hallways where the only judgment came from the echoes. Years later, after the viral video exploded, an AGT producer reached out. Richard was supposed to be part of season 18. The dream was finally happening. And then, for reasons nobody ever fully explained, he got dropped. The opportunity vanished as quickly as it had appeared. 2 rejections from the same show. Most people would have given up. Then Howie Mandel found the original video. The AGT judge and comedian reposted it on his own TikTok, adding his signature bald head to the image with Richard standing on top of it, and a caption that read, "Needs to be on AGT." A senior producer reached out again. Richard was skeptical, wounded, afraid to hope. "My shot's gone," he told them. The producer's response surprised him. "I can't believe we dropped the ball on this." 4 months later, plane tickets appeared on Richard's phone. He had never been on an airplane in his life. He had never traveled west of Missouri. At 55 years old, he was about to fly across the country to chase a dream he had almost abandoned. Angie told him he had to go. Before he boarded that plane, she made a prediction that seemed absurd at the time. "You're gonna get a golden buzzer, you know that?" Richard laughed it off. He figured he would fly to Los Angeles, sing one song, fly home, and have a nice little YouTube video for a memory. Nothing more. The moment the world saw him, Richard's audition aired on May 28, 2024. When he walked onto the America's Got Talent stage, the judges saw what everyone always saw: a quiet, unassuming man with calloused hands and humble clothes. They asked what he did for a living. He told them he was a custodian at a middle school in Indiana. They asked why he was there. "The kids would hear me sing and they'd tell me that I've got talent," he said. "That's why I'm here. That's why I got on a plane." He talked about wanting to marry Angie. He seemed nervous, almost apologetic for taking up space on that massive stage. Then he opened his mouth and began to sing, "Don't Stop Believin'." The transformation was immediate. The chatter in the audience stopped. The judges leaned forward in their chairs. Richard's voice filled the theater with a power that seemed impossible coming from this soft-spoken janitor. Every lyric carried decades of grief and hope and stubborn faith. Every note rang with an authenticity that cannot be manufactured or rehearsed. The audience began to stand, section by section, until the entire theater was on its feet. Simon Cowell rose from his chair with something like reverence on his face. He would later call Richard his hero. Heidi Klum was already crying when she stood up, walked to the judges' table, and slammed her hand down on the golden buzzer. Confetti exploded from the ceiling. Richard stood frozen at center stage, golden streamers falling around him like snow, unable to process what was happening. He had dreamed of this moment in empty hallways and quiet bedrooms and gospel choir rehearsals. He had imagined it during the darkest nights after Patty died, when music was the only thing that kept him breathing. And now, it was real. The first thing he did was call Angie. She had been right all along. The journey through the competition tested him at every stage. In the quarterfinals, Richard sang Michael Bolton's "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You," dedicating the performance to Angie. The song choice was personal, a love letter delivered on national television. Simon Cowell told him he had a real chance to win the whole thing. In the semifinals, Richard shifted gears entirely, delivering a powerhouse performance of Survivor's Eye of the Tiger, the iconic theme from Rocky III. He brought an energy nobody expected, proving he was more than just ballads and sentiment. Heidi Klum called it epic. "I've been singing in the halls for 23 years, Richard told the cameras. "I know how lucky I am to be here, and it's not wasted on me." And then came the finals, and Faithfully, and the standing ovation that would not stop, and the prediction from Howie Mandel, and the marriage to Angie, and the $1 million victory, and Neil Schon walking onto the stage to perform with a janitor from Indiana. Everything Richard had endured, every rejection and loss and quiet night singing to no one, had led to this. What fame could not change. In the months after his victory, Richard's life expanded in ways he never imagined possible. He sang the national anthem at Indiana Pacers games, standing at center court in front of thousands of fans. On November 17, 2024, he performed The Star-Spangled Banner during a home game against the Miami Heat, his voice echoing through the arena where Larry Bird once played. He traveled to festivals across the country, from the Vigo County History Center to California's Festival of Lights. He visited schools throughout Indiana, singing classic tunes for children who watched him on television and now lined up for autographs. On August 29, 2025, he released his debut single, Long Time Coming, and performed it live during the season 20 finale of America's Got Talent. The janitor who used to sing in empty hallways was now releasing original music to an audience of millions. Through all of it, Richard remained exactly who he had always been. He talked about using the prize money for a double-wide trailer in a senior living community in Florida, somewhere warm where he and Angie could enjoy their retirement. He wanted to give back to people, maybe buy a nice house, live simply and gratefully. The future, it's unwritten now, he said. Whereas a year ago, I was just the guy that took out the trash and wiped the tables, and now possibilities are kind of endless. But he was not interested in mansions or sports cars or the trappings of celebrity. He just wanted to sing, to connect with people, to prove that ordinary lives can contain extraordinary moments. Not everyone responded to his success with kindness. Some students at his school started teasing him after his fame grew, making jokes at his expense, testing whether success had changed the man they used to ignore. Richard responded with the grace that had defined his entire journey. "The kids are picking on me now," he admitted. "But I don't take it to heart. They're just being typical kids." He understood that visibility attracts criticism, that some people are uncomfortable when someone they overlooked suddenly demands to be seen. He did not have time for bitterness. He had spent too many years being invisible to waste his newfound presence on anger. The messages from fans meant more than any trophy. Hundreds of people wrote to tell him that watching his journey gave them courage to pursue their own dreams. One fan captured the sentiment perfectly. "Listening to you sing, Don't Stop Believin', gave me power enough to say, okay, I'm going to try. And the worst they can do is tell me no." Richard had become living proof that it was never too late, that rejection did not have to be the final answer, that dreams deferred did not have to become dreams denied. "I don't take none of this for granted," he said in December 2024. "Never ever dreamed in a million years I'd be the guy who inspires." Richard still works at West Vigo Middle School. He still performs with menopause when his schedule allows. He still walks the hallways where he spent 23 years being invisible, though now students stop him for selfies instead of walking past without a glance. He is still married to Angie, still grateful for the love that found him when he thought love was finished. He is still, in every way that matters, the same person he was before the golden buzzer and the confetti and the $1 million check. "I haven't changed," he insists. "I'm still the same person on the inside and out." Fame didn't create Richard Goodall, it revealed him. A life spent in quiet preparation collided with a single, irreversible moment, and the world finally listened. But his story isn't an ending. It's a warning and an invitation. How many voices are still echoing in empty hallways, unheard, waiting for the right second to be seen? And when that silence finally breaks, will we recognize it, or will it pass us by again?